I call today's hearing to order. I'm honored to stand in for Chairman Reichert in today's hearing. He's been called away to a briefing on Syria, and I expect he's going to join us shortly. But before I begin, I'd ask that we take a moment to remember a longtime Ways and Means Committee colleague and former chairman of this very subcommittee, Clay Shaw, who passed away last night. Clay's legacy as a husband and father lives on through his wife of 53 years, Emily, and his 4 children and 15 grandchildren. They're in our thoughts and prayers. Clay's legacy as a legislator is highlighted by the 1996 Welfare Reform Law, which he authored and shepherded through this committee, the House, and ultimately into law. This landmark law helped literally millions of his fellow citizens lead more fulfilling lives. Every time we work to improve that legislation, we're advancing Clay's vision for a better America for all of its citizens. We're privileged to carry on that legacy in this institution, on this committee, and on this subcommittee, all of which Clay loved and honored through his many years of dedicated service. I'd like to yield to our ranking member, Mr. Doggett, for further remarks related to the passing.
Well, thank you so much. I just want to join in honoring Clay and his service and extending our condolences to his family. I had the good fortune to have Clay as a Washington neighbor over here on D Street, a couple blocks away, a good neighbor, a strong member of this committee who cared deeply about the issues that we're discussing here and served honorably, and whenever we disagreed, we could always agree in a spirit of congeniality and collegiality, and it is a loss, and we join you in asking for a brief moment of silence in his honor.
Why don't we go ahead and, on his behalf, have the moment of silence. Thank you. Today, of course, we also mark the 12th anniversary of 9/11. We remember the victims of that tragic day and their families. We also remember those who, in the years since, have sacrificed so much to protect our country and our people. Please join me for another moment of silence on this count as well. Thank you. Today's hearing is on ending benefits for incarcerated individuals and other ways to improve the integrity of the unemployment insurance program. I'd like to begin by asking unanimous consent that Chairman Reichert's statement be submitted into the record. Chairman Reichert, as a former sheriff, was shocked to read headlines about individuals in jails collecting unemployment benefits, which you might call cash for cons. In New Jersey, there were 20,000 inmates who collected over $24 million. In Illinois, another $2 million was misspent this very same way. Millions more were wasted in South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Wisconsin. It's an injustice that the tax dollars of law-abiding citizens are paying for these benefit checks for people who have broken the law and simply should not qualify for these benefits. That's why Chairman Reichert introduced H.R. 2826, the Permanently Ending Receipts for Prisoners Act, also known as the PERP Act. This bill does 2 things. First, it makes clear that inmates are not allowed to collect UI benefits in case there's any doubt. Second, it instructs states to use currently available prison data to ensure they are not paying benefit checks to inmates. I'm one of several members who have already co-sponsored this legislation, and I know Chairman Reichert would welcome the support of anyone who agrees we should address this issue. This is only one aspect, one small aspect of UI improper payments, though. It reflects an obvious area where we can and should make progress. We look forward to receiving valuable feedback on this bill from our panel today. Today's hearing's about a lot more than ending cash for cons, though. We also want to identify other ways we can improve the integrity of the overall UI program so it can be there for those who are deserving of help. That's a billion-dollar question, or actually a $58 billion question. That's the total amount of UI improper payments over the last 5 years. That $58 billion in improper payments is more than the total amount of state and federal taxes collected last year to support all the unemployment benefits paid across the country. That's a huge number and one that deserves serious attention. Some of the problem involves fundamental mistakes, like paying UI checks to prison inmates, because UI places so much emphasis on getting checks out the door before verifying they're going to the right person. Data systems exist that can prevent these sorts of improper payments from being made in the first place. For example, involving prison inmates, deceased people, people who have already returned to work, and even people illegally applying from overseas. Another part of the problem involves states trying to recover improper UI payments after they occur. This pay-and-chase approach is costly, time-consuming, wasteful, and there are other challenges associated with it, since according to a recent report, only about half of annual improper payments are expected to be recovered. So the far better approach is to prevent improper payments before they go out the door and ensure we have systems in place to do just that. There are many reasons to prevent improper payments, starting with how they're paid for. State UI benefits are supported directly by payroll taxes on jobs, which already have risen over 60% in the last 5 years due to the recent recession. In many states, UI payroll taxes are expected to continue to rise into the future. These rising taxes fall directly on jobs, further reducing new job creation and hiring. That makes it especially important to prevent improper payments wherever possible and recover as much of those that are made. Joining us today to discuss all of these issues is a seasoned panel of experts representing the views of various states, including my home state of Indiana, also businesses and program experts. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today about how we can improve the integrity of the UI program so it's there to serve those who need it to get back on their feet. Mr. Doggett, would you care to make an opening statement? Thank you very much, Secretary Harthway. At this point, I'd like to take a point of personal privilege here and introduce my state's own Commissioner, Commissioner Sanders. Today, I have a distinct privilege of introducing specifically the Commissioner of the Indiana Department of Workforce Development, or as we call it, DWD in Indiana, Scott Sanders. Commissioner Sanders was first appointed by Governor Mitch Daniels in May 2012 and is currently a member of the Cabinet of Governor Mike Pence. He manages and implements training and employment programs for Hoosiers, collaborates on regional economic growth initiatives for Indiana, and oversees the unemployment insurance system. Commissioner Sanders brings many years of workforce development and financial management skills to his role at DWD. And prior to his appointment as Commissioner, Scott served as the Deputy Commissioner of Systems Information and Analysis and was the agency's CFO. In his role as Commissioner, Mr. Sanders' zeal for leading the agency and creating better outcomes for Hoosiers has helped pave the way for not only better, but more efficient service outputs, and also better quality and integrity in Indiana's overall workforce development system. He's been a tremendous asset for the state of Indiana, and I am honored to have him here today to testify in front of this Human Resources Subcommittee to present his reforms and accomplishments within the unemployment insurance system. I yield back.
Thank you, Chairman Young, Ranking Member Doggett, members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity and honor to share with you some of the efforts we have been making in Indiana regarding the issue of unemployment insurance integrity, and specifically actions we have taken to increase our ability to detect and prosecute UI fraud cases while helping unemployed Hoosiers return to work. My name is Scott Sanders, and I serve as the Commissioner of the Indiana Department of Workforce Development. Indiana's economy is beginning to recover from the recent recession. However, our unemployment rate remains too high at 8.4%. Last week, we had 60,000 individuals collecting some form of UI benefits. As long as Hoosiers rely on these benefits as a safety net against involuntary unemployment, protecting that system from misuse and corruption is a top priority of our department. In 2012, roughly a third of Indiana's estimated payments made in error went to individuals who had returned to work but continued to claim benefits to which they were not entitled. Obviously, working harder on the front end of the problem is a very important strategy, but also having plans on the back end to detect, investigate, and prosecute the fraud that has already occurred is needed as well. Our agency has targeted UI fraud as a priority over the past 2 years. However, we had to overcome several challenges to combat UI fraud. First, the low number of actual fraud prosecutions. Last year, only 24% of the UI fraud cases that were referred to county prosecutors had charges filed. This is due to the complexities of the UI system and limited resources of prosecutors' offices. UI fraud cases can be very time-consuming and resource-intensive. Another challenge we faced was the issue of venue. By statute, generally all criminal actions are tried in the county where the offense was committed. This creates a challenge in determining which county the claim was actually filed, since claimants file for benefits using an internet-based online filing system. We determined that a partnership with the Marion County Prosecutor's Office was a solid solution. The department issued a grant to the prosecutor's office to help fund a dedicated deputy prosecutor to specifically work with our investigators on pursuing UI fraud cases. This solved the problem of resources in the prosecutor's office in handling complex UI fraud cases. Additionally, it solved the question of venue, since their office is located in Indianapolis, where all UI claims are processed. We have also launched a public awareness campaign by publishing all UI fraud prosecutions on our website, including the names and photos and specifics of those that were convicted. We hope this creates an environment that conveys a heightened certainty and severity of punishment for fraudulent conduct. Since the beginning of this year, when the partnership started, the number of fraud cases filed by prosecutors has increased by over 330% over the same period last year. So far, nearly $450,000 in fraudulent benefits and penalties have been ordered to be repaid versus expenses totaling $64,000 for the grant. This partnership is still in its infancy, but already the returns are beyond original expectations, and we believe it will reduce the amount of UI fraud. In addition, we have put some focus on the front end of our cases. Earlier this year, we were able to pass a bill through our state legislature that we refer to as Jobs for Hoosiers. This provision allows the department to direct recipients of UI benefits to receive reemployment and eligibility assessment activities after they draw their 4th week of benefit, similar to the federal program required by Congress last year. The primary goal of this program is to educate unemployed individuals on the services, training, and assistance offered by our one-stop Work One centers. But most importantly, it gets Hoosiers back to work as quickly as possible. One valuable feature of this new law is that claimants appearing at the Work One centers may need to provide proof of identification. Fraudulent claimants typically have not shown up to receive these services, and subsequently their claim was placed on hold. This potential stopping of benefits for individuals who are fraudulently claiming them will have a critical reduction on the amount of fraud that occurs. In summary, protecting our UI system from misuse and corruption is a top priority of our department. By establishing this partnership with the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, we have realized benefits that go beyond the simple filing of more cases. We have fostered a greater awareness, expertise, and prosecution of UI fraud, increased the amount of fraudulent funds recovered, and have created an environment to deter fraud. Additionally, by adopting the Jobs for Hoosiers program, we will be able to get unemployed individuals back to work more quickly while ensuring only those that are truly unemployed receive UI benefits. All of these efforts are important steps in improving UI program integrity. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today and for your interest in our UI integrity initiatives.
Mr. Young, you're recognized for 3 minutes. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The General Accountability Office's report on this very topic, where you studied IT modernization challenges for the states with respect to their UI programs, one of the things I find quite interesting is towards the end of your oral and written testimony, you indicate that, number one, you recommended to labor to perform a comprehensive analysis of lessons learned, and they agreed with that recommendation. Secondarily, you recommended they distribute the analysis to each state through an information sharing platform or repository, say a website. And they were silent for some reason on that recommendation. Do you have any thoughts about the manner through which they intend to share best practices, unsuccessful practices, or so forth, absent a website?
It is my understanding that they are in the process of compiling lessons learned. They have not communicated back with us about how they would do that, other than that they were putting that information together to disseminate to the state officials.
I just think it's essential that we get better in all areas of public policy at the state level in talking more, sharing best and worst practices. I understand there are differences across populations and cultures and subcultures and economies, but nonetheless, we have to formalize these things as I see it, and hopefully labor will be a willing and engaged partner in that regard on this topic. Commissioner Sanders, we have a great story to tell in the state of Indiana. I'm going to give you an opportunity to expound upon it a little bit, but perhaps you could start just by indicating what motivated you and DWD and the administration more broadly to take up this initiative of targeting UI fraud, and then maybe speak to where you go from here.
Well, thank you, Congressman. I think it gets back to really having unemployment insurance truly be a safety net for those that are unemployed. And I think too often we see the amount of waste, fraud, and abuse that goes on in the system. And one of the challenges we had in Indiana was getting local prosecutors to take up the drum and march with it. And obviously, as the Secretary mentioned, word of mouth and unemployment insurance moves very quickly, whether it's those that are incarcerated or those that are actually unemployed and that are gaming the system. So now that we've been able to pick up the prosecution front with Prosecutor Curry's office, we've been able to really move the ball forward. I really think the piece, though, with Jobs for Hoosiers, that will attack UI fraud as well. It's similar to the program that the feds started in last year, but they brought individuals in at the 27th week. By that point, it's too far out. We're going to bring those individuals in the 4th week to verify that they are who they are and then also help them get reemployed.
Well, thank you so much for your good work. To the extent for all of you, we can help remove obstacles for further reform and further improvement in these programs and how they operate, please let us know. I yield back.